I want you to picture a line. On one side, you have the wildly successful, the people who seem to navigate chaos with a sort of eerie calm. On the other side, you have the frustrated, the overwhelmed, the people who feel like they're running on a treadmill that's slightly too fast.
It's a familiar image. We usually assume the difference is IQ or capital, or maybe just pure luck.
Exactly. But what if I told you the difference comes down to something much simpler? Something almost analog in a digital world? What if the dividing line is just a piece of paper?
That sounds almost too simple to be true. But when you dig into the psychology of high performance, it's actually the most critical tool we have.
Today, we are diving deep into the mechanics of success. We aren't talking about hustle culture. We're talking about the cognitive architecture of solving problems. Why do some people drown in difficulties while others use them as stepping stones?
And the answer starts with a phrase that sounds easy, but is surprisingly rare in practice. Thinking on paper.
Welcome to the show. Let's unpack this.
Let's do it.
So, the core premise here is that successful people think on paper, and unsuccessful people do not. That feels like a bold accusation. Are we saying people who don't write things down are just lazy?
In a cognitive sense, yes. The material we're looking at today suggests exactly that. It says people don't think on paper because they are too lazy to do the mental heavy lifting. You see, the mark of a genius isn't the complexity of their thoughts, it's the clarity of them. The mark of failure is confusion.
Confusion. That foggy feeling where you know something is wrong, but you can't quite grab it.
Precisely. When you keep a problem in your head, it's fluid. It morphs. It feels bigger and scarier than it is because it has no boundaries. But the moment you write it down, I am worried about X, you crystallize it. You trap the beast in a cage so you can look at it.
So, step one is just definition. Like a doctor?
That is the perfect analogy. Imagine walking into a doctor's office. You're in pain. If the doctor immediately says, "Let's operate," you'd run out the door.
I'd hope so.
You want them to stand back, look at the symptoms, and ask, what are the causes? Is it lifestyle? Is it diet? Is it stress? The text we're analyzing suggests that 50% of all difficulties are solved just by defining them clearly on paper.
50%? Just by writing down, here is the problem?
Yes. And another 25% is solved by determining the causes. So before you've even brainstormed a solution, you're 7/8 of the way there just by diagnosing the issue properly. But in our impatient society, what do? We jump to conclusions. We treat the symptom, not the disease.
We try to put a Band-Aid on a broken leg.
Exactly. And this leads to the next phase. Once you have the problem defined, you have to look for solutions. But here's the trap. We usually stop at the first logical answer.
Which seems efficient. If I find an answer, why keep looking?
Because the first answer is usually the conventional one. It's the safe one. There's a concept mentioned called the second right answer. Roger von Uecht talks about this. Once you find the right answer, ask yourself, okay, what is the second right answer?
That forces you to be creative.
It forces lateral thinking. Instead of digging the same hole deeper, you dig a hole somewhere else. Maybe the solution isn't to work harder at the job. Maybe the solution is to quit the job. Maybe the solution is to do nothing. Maybe the solution is to do the exact opposite of what you're doing.
It sounds like we need to be comfortable with a bit of chaos during the brainstorming phase.
You have to be. But let's shift gears to something even more fundamental. We've talked about defining the problem. But there is a massive psychological difference between how winners and losers simply talk to themselves.
This brings us to the orientation of the mind, past versus future.
Right. This is where the philosophy gets really interesting. The loser mentality, and I use that term to describe the outcome, not the person's worth, is obsessed with the past. They want to know, who did this? Who is to blame? Why did this happen to me?
It's the victim trap.
It is. And it triggers the law of attraction and the law of substitution.
Walk us through those.
The law of substitution states that your conscious mind can only hold one thought at a time. If you are obsessing over the problem, you cannot, by definition, be thinking about the solution. You are blocking the exit.
So worrying is literally occupying the space that a solution needs to inhabit.
Perfectly put. And the law of attraction suggests that the more you talk about your problems, complain, rehash, agonize, the more you attract those very vibrations into your life. You effectively become a magnet for more trouble.
That's terrifying. It means complaining is actually dangerous.
It's self-sabotage. Now contrast that with the winner. They are relentlessly future-oriented. They don't ask who broke the vase, they ask how do we clean this up and where do we go from here?
What do we do now?
That is the magic question. What is the next step? It shifts the mind instantly from victimhood to agency. You become the driver again.
Okay, so we've written the problem down, we've identified the causes, we've brainstormed multiple solutions, and we're focusing on the future. But I feel like a lot of people get stuck right here. Analysis, paralysis.
The graveyard of good intentions. This is where decision-making comes in. The script flips here. It says, make a decision. Any decision.
Any decision? Even a bad one?
In many cases, yes, because indecision is the primary reason for failure. There's a statistic here that's mind-blowing. 80% of difficulties should be decided upon the moment they arise.
Wait, 80%? That sounds reckless.
It sounds reckless, but think about the cost of waiting. If you act, you get feedback. If you're wrong, you learn and correct course. You get smarter. If you wait, you get zero feedback. You stagnate. The person who makes 10 decisions and gets 4 wrong is miles ahead of the person who makes 1 decision and gets it right, because the first person has 10 times the experience.
That's the fail fast mentality, before it was a Silicon Valley buzzword.
Exactly. Decisiveness reduces stress. Indecision is a massive stressor. It hangs over you. So the rule is, decide now. If you absolutely cannot, set a deadline. I will decide by Thursday at noon, and then stick to it.
I like that. It puts a container around the anxiety. But let's say we make the decision. We have a plan. Why do things still fall apart in the execution?
Because we forget the human element. We forget to assign the who and the when.
The accountability piece.
You see this in meetings all the time. Everyone agrees something must be done. Everyone leaves the room happy. 2 weeks later, nothing has happened. Why?
Because everybody thought somebody else was doing it.
Exactly. Responsibility is an abstract noun. You need to make it concrete. Bob, you are doing X, and I need it by Thursday at 2 p.m.
And then comes the part that I think managers struggle with the most. Inspection.
Inspect what you expect. It's catchy, but it's profound. Delegation is not abdication. You can't just throw a task over the wall and hope it lands. If it's important enough to assign, it's important enough to check.
It sounds micromanagey, though. How do you balance that?
It's not about hovering, it's about signaling importance. If I never ask you about the project again, you subconsciously assume it doesn't matter. Checking in is a form of leadership. It says this value you're creating is vital to us.
That's a great reframe. It's not lack of trust. It's validation of importance.
Precisely. Now I want to circle back to one specific technique mentioned for when you are really stuck, when you need a breakthrough. The brainstorming method, originally from Alex Osborne back in the 1940s.
This is the classic storm of the brain. But I feel like most people do this wrong. They just sit around a table and shout random things.
They do it terribly wrong. And the text gives us a very specific recipe for doing it right. First, the group size matters, 4 to 7 people.
Why that specific range?
Fewer than 4, you don't have enough friction or energy. More than 7, the group starts to splinter into side conversations. You lose the group mind.
Okay, 4 to 7 people. What else?
The question. You can't just ask, how do we increase sales? That's too vague. It's like trying to catch fog. You need precision. How do we increase sales by 20 in the next 90 days?
Clarity again.
Always clarity. But here's the absolute golden rule, the one that breaks most brainstorming sessions if it's ignored. You must separate idea generation from idea evaluation.
Meaning you can't judge the ideas while you're coming up with them.
Zero judgment. Total amnesty. The moment someone says, that's a stupid idea, or we tried that last year, the session is dead.
Because everyone shuts down.
Right. The fear of rejection, which goes back to childhood, kicks in. You have to build a wall of time between creative mode and critical mode. Spend 30 minutes just generating. Quantity over quality. The goal is to get 50, 100 ideas.
And the leader's job here isn't to be the smartest person in the room.
No, the leader is just the stoker of the fire. They shouldn't dominate. They should just keep asking, what else? What else? Because often the genius idea, the superconscious solution, comes right at the end, when everyone is exhausted and their logical filters have turned off.
It's like you have to clear out the rusty water before the clean water flows.
That's it. You might have a solution that seems ridiculous at first, but when you evaluate it later, you realize it's the breakthrough. But if you had critiqued it in the moment, you would have killed it.
This entire system, from writing it down to the future orientation to the decisive action to the structured brainstorming, it paints a picture of success that is very mechanical, in a good way.
It is mechanical. That's the liberating part. We tend to think success is this mystical state of being, but this approach says, no, intelligence is a way of acting.
Intelligence is a verb.
Yes, you can effectively double your working intelligence just by using these systems. If you define the problem clearly, you are smarter than the genius who keeps it in his head. If you focus on solutions, you are more effective than the brilliant person who focuses on blame.
It levels the playing field.
It tilts the field in your favor. It suggests that you can have what you want if you are willing to do the mental labor, if you are willing to not be lazy, as we started with.
So, let's bring this home. For the listener who is feeling stuck right now, maybe they have a career issue, a relationship struggle, or a financial block. What is the very first thing they should do when this episode ends?
Turn off the phone. Get a blank sheet of paper and write at the top, what exactly is the problem?
Don't just think it, ink it.
Ink it, define it. Then ask, what are all the possible causes? And then, what are all the possible solutions? And don't stop at the first one. Find the second right answer.
And then?
Pick one. And move. Do it today. Do 80% of it now. Because the universe rewards action, not just contemplation.
It's empowering to think that the gap between confusion and clarity is just a pen and 15 minutes of honest work.
It's the most high leverage time you will ever spend. As the text says, be clear about what you want, stand firm on your goal, but be flexible on how you get there.
A fascinating deep dive into the mechanics of the winning mind. We hope this helps you clear the fog and find that next step.
Think on paper, everyone. It changes everything.
Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.